And that brings the time to 2100 hours. A very good evening to you. Warm welcome. This is Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa, the Africa Perspective. We're bringing you the very latest news and current affairs from the heart of Africa to across the globe, wherever you're listening from. Please share your perspective as we bring you the voices, the faces, and the perspectives that matter. One planet, countless stories. Welcome to it. I am Tshepiso Makwetla.
Tshepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
And coming up on the program today, we'll take you live to Tanzania, where there have been reports of more than 100 people who have been arrested facing treason charges. We'll also look at peace efforts underway in Kenya to finally bring to an end the bloodshed that we've seen more than a year ago between the paramilitary rapid support forces and the Sudanese army. And of course, we'll also tell you how the G20 Health Working Group Summit ending with a bit of a damp squib, it appears, with no resolution on some of the major objectives that health ministers were meeting about. So we'll tell you what's happening there, what happened behind the scenes. First, let's start with this.
The pulse of the continent in 60 minutes. Stay informed and inspired with Africa World Hour on Channel Africa.
And in some breaking news tonight, more than 100 people in Tanzania have been charged with treason following violent protests at one that erupted after last month's disputed elections. Rights groups say security forces killed scores of civilians as demonstrations swept through several towns, accusing authorities of using excessive force to silence dissent. President Samia Suluhu Hassan has been declared the winner of the October 29th poll with an overwhelming 98% of the vote. We now speak to Hekima Mwasipu, a lawyer in Tanzania, to give us the latest news. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Yeah, good evening, madam. How are you?
Well, thank you. So I doubt that you can respond in kind, given the fact that we are hearing reports of widespread killings and more than 100 people being charged with treason. Can you just give us the latest news that you're receiving and perhaps just add a little bit of context post the inauguration of President Hassan?
Of course, after the inauguration of our president, he admitted that some of citizens who were in the street on the day of 29 October, some of them were killed, and some of properties were destroyed by those people who were demonstrating in the street. So I don't have a specific number, and I think there are several agencies in our country which are responsible in giving specific data and the information about the casualties which have been happened after 29th of October 2025 election. Right. Yes.
So let's segregate you to legal issues, given the fact that that is what you do by profession. Do you know on what grounds and which law Tanzanian authorities are using to effect these treason charges? There's some terrible background echo. I'm not sure if it's anything on our side, and if we should try and call you back. But
pardon?
Is it something that you can switch off? There's terrible feedback that we're getting.
Feedback about what? Sorry, I cannot hear well.
Do you have a receiving monitor or something that is echoing back our conversation? Because unfortunately, it is distorting the sound.
I don't get well. Maybe.
Okay, we're going to call you again, sir. 4 minutes past 9. You are listening to Africa World Hour.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
The pulse of the continent in 60 minutes. Stay informed and inspired with Africa World Hour on Channel Africa.
So let's continue now our conversation with Hekima Mwasipu, who is a lawyer in Tanzania, following reports that over 100 people have been charged with treason. So, Mr. Mwasipu, the question I was asking you is, do you have any idea on which legal instruments Tanzanian authorities are using to charge these people with treason?
Yes, I'm a lawyer who also attended this case today. More than 100 people have been charged in the court of law on the offense of conspiracy and treason. And there are 4 batches which consist of those 2 offenses. The first batch is 22 accused, who also consist of 2 charges of conspiracy and treason. And the second batch, which are charged also by the same counts of conspiracy and treason. And the third batch also consists of 34 accused who also charged by 2 counts of conspiracy and treason. And the fourth batch is 13 accused who also are charged by 2 counts of conspiracy and treason. And we have 95 accused also are charged by 2 counts of conspiracy and treason. And these 4 batches were brought. These 4 batches were brought today by the police officers from various police stations which are in Dar es Salaam. So, in fact, after being charged in court of law, they were also remanded in prison because these charges are non-bearable offenses.
Now, if you could just explain to us, do you have any idea of whether these were people who were arrested during the initial pre-election protests? And if so, have many people being in prison for a long time without being charged? Do you have any information around that? Okay, it sounds like unfortunately we have lost that line to Mr. Mwasipu. But just to go back to some of what he was saying, so he was saying over 100 people have been charged with treason. And I was just looking through some of the reports by other news media around the continent and the world, some putting the figure something around 240 people. And according to reports, the charge sheets say the treason charges arise out of incitement to commit violence, or rather accusing those defendants of inciting demonstrations and intention of obstructing the election. And some reports saying that these charges could actually result in the accused facing capital punishment. So that's where unfortunately we're going to have to leave it on this issue. We will keep on endeavoring as best as possible to bring you the latest and give a little bit more detail on what is happening. Unfortunately, I lied to Hekima Mwasipu, who is a lawyer in Tanzania, who says he was present when the accused appeared in court. Was not the very best. So that brings us the time to 10 minutes past 9. We continue with more news here on Africa World Hour.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa's just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. 1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
And we continue bringing you the African perspective of many of the regional and international developments that we are reporting on. This time we go to the Sudan, where after more than a year of relentless bloodshed, a glimmer of hope seems to be emerging in Sudan. The powerful paramilitary rapid support forces say they have accepted a truce proposal put forward by international mediators, raising cautious optimism for a possible pause in a conflict that has devastated the country and surrounding countries. A truce proposal reportedly brokered by mediators from the African Union, the United States and Saudi Arabia aims to create a space for humanitarian access and talks toward a lasting ceasefire. We speak now to Dr. Saifeldin Daoud Abdel Rahman, Chief Economist and Managing Director of the Davis Group of Research and Consultancy in Sudan. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Dr. Saifeldin. If you could just talk us through what has been put on the table by mediators and who actually is present to partake in these negotiations.
Thank you very much for having me. Just for benefit of your audience, that just give a very quick background to this conflict. Sudan, unfortunately, deeply continue in a political failure and historical fault line, which is actually contributing to the ongoing conflict. So this ongoing conflict has historical backgrounds. Sudan, during its modern history for the last 70 years, it experienced almost 20 military coups. There are so many other factors that contributing to the ongoing conflicts, including government failures, power relations between different ethnic groups, geopolitics in the region, and finally, one of the key factors on that also related to the resources. There are some current attempts by the U.S. Special Envoy for Africa, Mr. Polis, which they have the court meeting, the court group, which is consists of Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and U.S. They are trying to break a ceasefire for 3 months truce, and after that they will see. It is received very cautiously by the Sudanese. RSF, they receive the issue and statement that they're going to accept it. The military is still there is some kind of maneuvering in terms of accepting the ceasefire, and the military leader. So far, what is announcing is rejecting, and they believe this is just as a maneuvering. But there is a division between all those actors.
So could you tell us, have you learned on what is on offer, if there are any conditions?
Yes, the military believes that there is some kind of maneuvering between RSF, because they have already, before the falling of Al-Fashir, and you have seen what is happening in Al-Fashir, they was requesting this, and there was a denial from the other side, RSF. But now the RSF taking, accepting this. But it seems that there is also a division between the different, the military and their alliance, including the civilians, and between accepting the agreement and some of the influential actors within them rejecting this agreement, and they will continue mobilizing for more military actions.
Is it possible to just give us a little bit more detailed form what exactly is on the table? So if we're saying that the Rapid Support Forces have agreed to a truce, I would imagine that there are terms and conditions. There are at least consensus points that we would have to understand what is at stake if either party does not take up the offer, or if they agreed, what guarantees there are of that ceasefire?
What appears to us as a Sudanese in general, there was ongoing meetings in the U.S. In terms of brokering this ceasefire. And the news has come that the coming from the U.S. is that the military in principle agreed for this fire. But after that, there was some kind of discussion about the details about this ceasefire. So always we say the devil in the details. By contrast, the RSF, after falling of al-Fashir, they suggested that their agreement, and then they can allow humanitarian corridors to come, and this. So there is so much conflicts and unknown issues in terms of whether the military is going to go ahead. Today, there was an interview with the U.S. Special Envoy in this issue, and he suggested that the military, in principle, agreed on that. I think they're looking for more details about the terms and the conditions that is going to guide this civil war. But the worry about the Sudanese is that this ceasefire, the suggested ceasefire, should not be as an attempt for both parties to start again mobilization for the more military mobilizations, and then continue the same way as we have seen in many years ago in different ways. So the military fire, the ceasefire should not be as a tool for military mobilizations. But we are very hopeful that despite the fact that there is no clear consensus from the military side that they will accept the ceasefire, but there is some hope that it's going to work. It seems that also the military alliances are not in the same agreement between them. So now the fear is that whether there is hardliners that they continue to push for more military actions, or to accept the proposal that has given by the court meetings and the court alliance that is supporting this process.
And you mentioned a very important point that there could be splinters in both organizations, both groupings, because of these peace talks. And I want to look at the ability of not only the African Union, Saudi Arabia, but most importantly the United States, to make sure that the center holds with regards to those negotiations, and that requires a level of authority over both groupings. Do you believe these three entities have that?
Sadly to say that our regional organizations and continental organizations, they are very playing light role, and they seem that they are powerless to push on this. However, the Americans, they are trying hard to because this is the only available option now for the Sudanese in these deadly conflicts, that the court meetings and those 4 countries that they are putting. So there is push and pull from here and there. And it seems that also there is a fatigue in terms of our regional organization, because there are a number of failed attempts in terms of trying to bring both rivals to the negotiation tables and to continue on that. So with also the foreign interference from here and there, it seems that it's going to be something that's very difficult. Most of the Sudanese are very ambitious in terms, and they're also looking very much to have a more comprehensive peace agreement, that more inclusive peace agreement that will end up on all this cycle of the military and civilian failure that is continue trapping the country in this kind of deadly conflict. So our hope is that the military will also try best to have a ceasefire. And because the statement today is very encouraging from the American Special Envoy Police in terms of what is announced is something different, and what is negotiating is something also positive.
And therein lies the rub for me, in the sense that, and I say this by reflecting on the recent Israeli Gaza peace deal or ceasefire deal, the Americans were very upbeat about it. They gave a so-called no-nonsense approach to both parties to not breach the ceasefire, but barely before the ink had been dry, that was the case. So are there fears that while America talks a hard game, a good game, that it might end up also just being surface level agreement?
Exactly. We have seen the American authority, they are trying to push hard to marketing on that they are a peace dealer and peacemakers in the continent. We have seen what happened in the deal between Rwanda and DRC, and currently their engagement in Sudan. But let me tell you that the current framework, it is not very clear. And there are so many scenarios that expecting if there is a failure in this ceasefire, we don't know. So it's going to mobilize more regional actors to back both sides to continue the war. And that is one of the terrible situation or terrible scenario that we don't like to see. And we are very much hopeful that what happened in the ceasefire and those countries to put their heavy weights in terms. But you can see that, as we say always, there is no free lunch. Those different actors, they have their own different interests. And sadly, the conflict in Sudan is very much internationalized and within the other regional actors. So you can see all those actors also looking for their stakes in terms of putting an end to this conflict. So things are not clear, but what is coming from Washington is very different. That the two, for the first time 2 weeks ago, the two parties have direct meetings. And that was first positive steps. And now what we are hearing from there, the negotiation is still continue. But what is announced in Port Sudan and the others, it's very different story. So there is these conflicting elements, but we have, as the Sudanese, we always getting this, what is negotiating in the table, something different, and what is announced in many ways is very different from the others.
No, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Saifuddin Daoud Abdel Rahman, who is Chief Economist and Managing Director of David's Group for Research and Consultancy in Sudan. Thank you very much for your time.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Tshepiso Makwetla.
Channel Africa. Let's continue now while we speak about more conflict on the continent, sadly. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC's Turi province, civilians are caught in a deadly spiral of violence. Armed clashes between community militias and rebel groups have left entire villages burnt down, families displaced, and thousands of trapped between warring factions. The International Committee of the Red Cross says the humanitarian situation is dire, with people forced to flee their homes often multiple times and others risking everything to return to little of what's left of their communities. We now speak to Communications Officer of the ICRC, Eleanor Asumani. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. I was just thinking about this and wondering to myself, there are probably whole generations whose life has been this very existence that I've described. But just how long have these families in this particular, say, current context have been enduring this kind of life?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tshepiso. Thank you for making time for us and the work that we do, and more than anything, giving some visibility to a crisis that is much less on the spotlight. Indeed, we often talk about the Kivus, North Kivu, South Kivu, especially with the heavy fighting we've had earlier. And we don't often talk about this forgotten crisis in Ituri that has been going on, as you said, for many years, for decades. You've spoken of, families, children that have only lived through this type of violence. You've spoken of displacements. We have been talking, our teams have been talking to people who've been displaced not only once, twice, three, but even four times. Some of these people have left in 2018 and they've been displaced multiple times. So it's very hard for them to make a living in such conditions.
And this current crisis, as I mentioned, that I want to just focus on this in particular, and it's because, in as much as we're talking about decades, has there been a marked change in terms of trends, or is it the same groupings that the civilians are in, and it's I can't say in conflict with, or whose conflict that they are enduring, or is it that as the various rebel groups mutate, that even the violence, the trends themselves change?
So we have indeed noticed an upsurge in clashes between armed groups, as well as some military operations in the region. Those incursions of certain armed groups, they've been like targeting specifically villages and civilians, even when IHL, international humanitarian law, is very clear about not targeting civilians. Even since July, we've definitely realized that there are more and more people that are being injured, weapon wounded. We've seen hospitals and medical facilities that are under tremendous pressure because they don't have simply the capacity to take in those weapon wounded.
And are you able to share with us the death toll, the types of injuries that have also been witnessed?
I don't have that number, to be honest, but what I can tell you is that in those same medical facilities, with the rise of numbers of people arriving with very serious injuries, we also see some medical facilities that are lacking medical equipment, they're lacking medical supplies. The personnel, the qualified personnel is not feeling safe. So they decide to leave because they're also looking after themselves and their families. And we're also seeing a lot of people who don't make it to those medical facilities because of the insecurities. So because they cannot travel to those medical facilities to be tended, they die on the way.
And what services are there actually?
Services, well, there should be everything, but not functional. You talk about, we can, for instance, mention water points. There's a lot of infrastructure that is not functional. And you add to this the tremendous pressure that the displaced communities is also having on the host communities. When you used to have one water point for a small village, then the village may have double the number. So of course, you need to have 2 or 3, if not 4 water points. So there is a lot of pressure also on the host communities, and we don't often say enough about that.
What will happen if the picture doesn't change? Because as you say, there should be, but obviously it's impossible not only for the humanitarian personnel who live within the region, but also I'd imagine emergency supplies are also prevented from reaching these vulnerable areas. So what is the worst case scenario if this trend continues?
At the moment, we are already in a situation where in this region, in Ituri region, 1.5 million people are food insecure. This is United Nations numbers. So that means that most people don't have access to food, and not being able to eat is definitely a problem. The reason why these people don't have access to food is because despite most of people in Ituri being a farmer, they basically either don't have land because they're being displaced, and you can't have land if you're constantly, as we said previously, displaced 1, 2, 3, 4 times, but also because they don't have the liberty of traveling from point A to point B. So I think we could be in a situation where more and more people are being food insecure, where more and more people don't have access to medical facilities. We've mentioned weapon wounded, but we also need to think about very basic primary care. Our teams have noticed on the ground that mothers and children are less and less attending those medical facilities simply because they don't feel safe to do so.
We really do thank you for your time and hope to speak to you again, Eleanor Asomani, who is the ICRC International Red Cross's Communications Officer in that region. Brings the time to 21:30.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Sepiso Makweta.
Channel Africa.
And that brings the time to 29 minutes to 10. And let's go now to G20 matters here in South Africa, where health ministers of the G20 met in Limpopo for a summit of the Health Working Group. And this where Africa's voice is growing stronger in shaping the global health agenda. The Global Leaders Network, chaired by Helen Clark, who is chairperson of the PMNCH, called for political action to put women's, children's and adolescents' health at the heart of that agenda. We saw a chairman's statement of the finalization of that health working group. But I understand, according to the information that's come through, that contrary to there being a declaration, an outcome that is endorsed by all G20 health ministers, that did not happen. It seems that there were two countries who held out on the final agreement. We're joined now by Dr. Temitope Ilori, Director General of the NACA Nigeria, to discuss Nigeria's experience and what this moment means for accountability and equity in global health. Dr. Ilori, a very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Perhaps let me just get some sense from you, some clarity on, would you say that health ministers were satisfied with the outcome, or the fact that there was disagreement is a source of concern?
Thank you very much. Good evening. Well, I believe most of the health ministers were in synergy, and we all agree that women, child, adolescent health is something that should be of major concern to everybody, across the globe. And many countries are doing this. Many are allocating budgetary allocations for that. And many of the fundings are also giving priority to women, children, and adolescent health. So, and in alignment with the theme of this year's G20 summit, equity, equality, solidarity, sustainability was very key, particularly for low and middle income countries to be able to sustain the response, and strengthen the health systems of these institutions and of these countries. So I believe that is the way to go. And many of the health ministers appreciate this, particularly the need for national ownership. There's need for them to strengthen the system to ensure that the low and middle income countries have take ownership in a transitional way. Funds should not be stopped abruptly, but rather there should be a transition program to ensure that countries come on board with necessary budgetary allocation and to be able to meet the needs of their citizens. I think all these were discussed in earnest, and particularly the need for accountability, for funds released to countries through grants, through loans, for countries to be accountable for this. And I think there's need for the G20 countries to actually put in place mechanisms to actually monitor and track implementation of some of these interventions and ensure that countries, are quite accountable for resources that are released to them.
So South Africa's health minister, who was the chair of this meeting, saying he's appreciative of the joint efforts and commitment to action on some of these major objectives that you mentioned, but he did speak about complexities. So I want to hear from you, just in terms of Nigeria being a pioneer in community-led accountability for areas such as HIV and public health. What does this G20 moment represent for countries like yourselves trying to bridge that divide of global commitments versus local realities, especially given the fact that there has been funding cuts?
Yeah, thank you. I think the major thing is that, yes, in Nigeria, we've been, making use of a lot of community resources. We have community health workers. We have the civil society organizations. We have the patient community themselves. And they've been doing a lot in terms of community-led monitoring, in terms of accountability, in terms of demand creation. And this has helped us, to continue with the response. I believe now more than ever before, the G20, like I said, there's need for them to hold, governments and countries accountable, even as they continue to validate, the demand side accountability to ensure equity. There's need to also ensure accountability in the processes.
And on that issue of leadership and ownership that you mentioned earlier on, particularly the Global Leaders Network wanting women, children and adolescents' health to be a permanent item for the global health agenda as we go to the G20, your understanding on why this must be anchored politically, and also why is Nigeria leading by example, if at all?
Yes, well, health is more than a declaration. It's political, and there's need for both the health ministers and the health stakeholders to speak to the politicians, to speak to the finance team, because there's need to mobilize resources for many of these health intervention. In Nigeria, we have the renewed hope agenda of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and this has helped us to stabilize, the health reforms that are ongoing. We have the Basic Health Care Provision Fund, which is like 1% of our consolidated, revenue that is dedicated to health. And then the women, child, and adolescent health is given priority in this regard. We have the National Health Insurance Scheme that was relaunched in 2022. There's a National Health Insurance Act, actually, and it has made it mandatory for everybody to be enrolled. And at present, we are onboarding the vulnerable groups, children, adolescents, pregnant women, people living with HIV, people with disabilities. They're giving priorities, and many sub-national governments are actually sponsoring this, and even the federal government, and even some international donors, partners with grants and loans to ensure that they stay on the health insurance scheme. It's something that at present, just about 15% of our general population are on the scheme. But in the last 1 year, for instance, we've had about 2 million Nigerians onboarded, and we're expanding the scheme even as we go on. So I would say that we have the high political will, starting from the office of the president himself, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and even the First Lady. The First Lady has been going, in fact, she's our health champion. She's been very much involved in the campaign against malaria, against tuberculosis, against HIV/AIDS, syphilis, hepatitis. She has this pet project that is referred to as Free to Shine campaign, trying to encourage the girl child to be able to reach their maximum potentials.
So just finally, when you're talking about those funding gaps, and I'm just wondering, when looking at women, youth, and the demographic dividends, How is Nigeria, for instance, linking investments in women, children, and adolescents to what really is goals like education and employment?
Well, we're doing a lot in terms of education, in terms of information, in terms of ensuring that the girl child stays in school, in terms of changing cultural norms, in terms of behavioral changes. We're working with community leaders, we're working with the faith-based organizations, we're working with schools, we're expanding curriculum to include sexual and reproductive health. We are also, championing campaigns, He for She, involving the boys, involving the men in this campaign. We have lots of skills acquisition programs that are on board. We have small and middle empowerment program, investment for the women, the young women, so that they can start small businesses, that they can generate income, because we know there's a strong linkage between poverty, between what do you call it, ignorance, lack of education, and people, early childbirth, early marriage, and so many other, ills and that is attached, to poor health. And therefore, we're doing everything possible to empower the girl child.
Dr. Temitope, thank you so much for speaking to us. Much appreciated. Dr. Temitope Ilori is the Director General of the NACA in Nigeria, just speaking about the just concluded G20 Health Working Group Summit in Limpopo, South Africa.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. The pulse of the continent in 60 minutes. Stay informed and inspired with Africa World Hour on Channel Africa.
The South African delegation attending the 30th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, COP30, is already in Belém, Brazil. They're attending the annual meeting taking place from next Monday until the 21st of this month. And the SA delegation is led by Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, Dr. Dion George, together with a delegation including the Maisela Kekana, the department's Deputy Director General for Climate Change. All right, so we will come back to that story in just a moment.
The pulse of the continent in 60 minutes. Stay informed and inspired with Africa World Hour on Channel Africa. The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Muranziwa wa mina. Muranziwa means my love in Xitsonga. So if you're listening to this, just know that you are my love. Yes. You and I are an item. We're dating. We are together. So I love you, baby. Why are you blushing? Why are you blushing? Like, haven't you heard somebody confessing their love to you? I mean, you gotta get used to it now, because I'm gonna tell you this every day, that I love you. I can tell you, there's so many people who are never told they are loved. I come to the studio every Monday, 12 to 3, because I've got an appointment with you. I take you serious. Forget about the other person, right? Moranziwa.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege.
Siyabangena manje. Vito Jabulani Kolele iMagoda. Jabulani is a young man from Giyani in Limpopo in South Africa. Very easy guy, taking things easy. To know me is to know that I love what I do, which I'm crazy about it. So when you hear me on radio, expect the best. Expect great music. Expect great content. Expect 180 minutes of nothing but fun. You'll find me on the morning reset, 3 to 6 a.m., Monday to Friday. Siyabangena baba. Ay. Mbuleke.
At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Tshepiso Mokwetla.
Channel Africa.
15 minutes to 10, wrapping up Africa World Hour in just a moment. But before we do that, shall we tantalize you just a tad bit, Miss Shayla Ndikumana? What's happening on African Diaries?
Listen, speaking about tantalizing,
I knew you would get right on that.
Deep within, my darling, deep within. We're talking all things Driepootjie course, right? History will have you know that the instrument, which is the three-legged pot, was brought in by the Dutch settlers. However, the style, the tradition, the heritage behind that is so South African, so Southern African in actual fact, that we've decided to delve into that because there's a business in Zimbabwe that is thriving off that. So that is the very first hour. Then in the second hour of the show, love stories, love tunes. And the idea truly is to get you to be able to communicate how you feel using songs when it comes to romantic relationships. And so that's what we do in the second hour. And our very own Tido Macau is the one who brings us a mix this Friday.
Look at this one smiling. I don't understand it. She's busy cooking love in her own tripod today. I don't know what's happening. All right, thank you very much, Shayla Ndikumana. And that's coming up on African Diaries this evening. We continue with Africa World Hour. And I think a perfect note is Shayla was talking about cooking up, I think, all the warmness, all the love of being African. And we talk now to, he's a legend. His music has carried South Africa through some of its most defining moments, and we are talking here about the days of struggle to the celebration of freedom. Sipho Hostix Mabuse has done it all. He's an institution. He's a saxophonist, drummer, composer, cultural icon. And this December, he joins an extraordinary lineup for the Maibuye Africa concert, the rebirth of Ubuntu, a one-night celebration of who we are, where we've been, and what we're still dreaming to become. Sipho Hostix Mabuse joining me in studio. What a pleasure on a rainy Friday. I never thought I could drag you out from, I believe you were performing very recently in Namibia?
Yes, it was an incredible, I don't even know how to describe it. Those people are just saying, please come back. Mm-hmm. So, when people want you to come back, it means that you've done an exceptional good job.
And was that a preview to what we're likely to experience?
Well, we'll do better this time. Yes, most definitely. Most definitely.
So what were you dishing out for them that...
Well, what's important is that don't underestimate what people, appreciate. And for some strange reason, I was feeling a little uncomfortable with some of the new stuff that I was going to do. But I was amazed at the way they responded to the music. And of course, they'll always want these popular songs that, when you start playing, everybody just starts screaming. And it's like, you pop star, It gives that pop star feeling of yesteryear.
You do invite that, Prasipo. I've been to many a Joy of Jazz concerts where we've seen each other hooked up. In fact, I was speaking about that moment recently, but I want to focus on just that and how you bring it to the new generation, how they get to experience Sipho Hostix Mabuse and this concept of Maibuye Africa concert.
It's a privilege, actually. I'm so grateful to have met him, or he met me. So
well, when you say let's introduce
Billy Munama. Billy Munama and I have worked for so many years, and we've done exceptionally well together. And as a young person, I think he's catalyst. He's central to everything that I do as a musician, and I've just been grateful that our working together has borne fruit. You know, and it's important that the relationship and we continue on the trajectory of what he has created. The Maibuya concept is a concept that is unbelievable. You know, what Billy has done is almost like a great promoter, but he is a musician, you know. A promoter brings out all the great talents out of this country. I mean, I've been to some of the shows where I have not performed, and I've seen some of the artists that have performed in that show. And for him to consider bringing some of his colleagues, you know, some of his colleagues who are of his generation onto that stage, and people make those kind of performances, it's just incredible. And I am, you know, talking about privilege, I was probably one of the first people, the first artists to be on the concept.
All right, so
and the concept has just grown in leaps and bounds.
Let's bring in Billy to talk about that then. So what was your concept of it? And I'm just thinking, when you say, to you, your understanding, Maibuya Africa, Mabuya ini, because for you, young generation, there's not too much to look on. That's your own personal experience.
We want to recall the music of those who came before us, and those are Africans. We want to celebrate the history, the memory, and the heritage and the culture. And we believe that we are the custodians of those who came before us. Miriam Makeba left in 1959 to Venice, Italy, with a project called Come Back Africa. And that project Africa is Maibuya Africa. So the Maibuya Africa, it became an ideological concept, you know, for emancipation, you know, politically. But now I want to bring it closer to the music. I want us to recall that music that emancipated the people, and so that we can keep that legacy. Because now, when practically every time we do an event and then I call Brasipo, we keep that music alive, because they get to get paid royalties. There's an activation that happens. Even last time I had Soul Brothers, they had about 8,000 streams in that week, because of the engagement with the media and so forth, is to keep that legacy alive.
And I'm going to come back to the lineup and the concept behind it in just a minute. So for you, Brasipo, what are you remembering? Because memory is a big part of...
It's a weapon.
Exactly. So
yes.
And creating new memories is also important, to inculcate not only a culture of appreciation, but empower young people to create memories that they want to then pass on
absolutely
to the next generation.
Absolutely. You know, there's a saying, I'm currently reading a book. It's a very interesting book to say, you know, if you don't know where you come from, you'll never find the right path to where you're going. You must first know where you come from, and then you chart your path to where you're going. And this whole music is about reminding ourselves of who we are and what this music means to us. Sometimes we tend to get lost, and then we get caught up in fallacies, you know, where we think because those who had always imposed the mentality of thinking that we're inferior always would want us to do what they believe is theirs. So we can interact some of the stuff with them, but what is critical is, who are we? What are we saying to the young people who are coming behind us? You know, I mean, if you've been all over the world, the first thing that the people want to know is, where are you from? And through the music, through the food, through all the clothing and everything, the colors, everything is colorful about us. So it's very important that when we go onto that stage, we reflect on who we are.
So let's talk about the lineup. Brasipo says you had him there initially, and he says it's grown in leaps and bounds. So tell us a little bit more about who's going to be on that, and what type of music offering did you have in mind when you're thinking of that moniker of Maibuya Africa coming?
Yeah. So we are very meticulous about the lineup, the people that we choose for. We choose conscious singers, people who have a lyric that it has a meaning to the people. We want the artist to be the representative of the people. We want the music that speaks with the social problems of the people. And that is why when I choose an artist, I'm like, Langa, you're gonna do Lucky Dube, a tribute to Lucky Dube. And for people to see Langa doing that, they have never imagined it, because there's a lyric in Lucky Dube's song. It says the cat and the dog, they've forgiven each other.
Yes.
You know, and then we're in Reconciliation Month. So I conceptualize it according to the historical month that we're in. The one that we finished doing, it was in June. And in June, we tailor-made it according to the youth of 1976. So Julie Sipuma, she will be doing Letambuli. So what gets you on the lineup, it is for you to say, yes, I will be able to do this tribute, because we're paying tribute, and also we want the musicians to sing their favorite songs that the people they love. Zoe Mudicha, she comes and sing, Busim Flongo. People, they were like, what is this? You know, and I have seen Piwe is going to be doing Miriam Makeba, and so forth. So now we have a storytelling. So now from the 1960s, the musicians who were executed by Fervur, we're talking about, those ones. Yeah. So now it comes from the choral. When we open the show, with the national anthem. So that we want to bring that spirit of unity.
But I'm also seeing a We Are the World type of...
Absolutely. It was inspired by that kind of a thing, that if these people, they can do it, we can do it too.
Principal, so who would play you? Who would make a tribute to
I'm playing
you?
myself.
No, I know, but I'm just thinking, if following on from that, who would it be absolutely crazy to, make a tribute for you, but that would still make sense of the young musicians?
To be honest, Tsepi, I get approached by a number of young people. One of the things that I always ask him, what is it that you're going to make about me? You'd have to play all the instruments as well to be able to do everything that I do. You have to play the flute, you have to play the saxophone, you have to sing, you have to play the drums. So which one of you? Perhaps I should actually audition. That's actually an interesting idea.
Maybe I get my royalties.
Maybe I should start auditioning people who can play hot sticks. Guys, play. You must play all those instruments to be able to do the show. So I was saying to Billy, okay, that you have your guys who are playing the musical instrument. What is it that you want me to do? In most cases, yes, I've played the instruments that he wants me to, to play, and it's got some exceptional musicians as well, in the brass lines. So with the kind of music that he chooses, it doesn't deviate exactly from who I am. It's the music that people have known me for. And
who is Sipho Hot Sticks Mabuse to Sipho Hot Sticks Mabuse? When you think about your legacy, there's a particular way that you would look back on the work that you've done, how you believe you'd be received, and what you intend to put out.
Well, your question is quite loaded, if I may say, because one can never perfectly articulate oneself. I've always tried to find out exactly who am I. I've always find myself evolving through times. I believe I'm an inventive person. I don't subscribe to the notion of be comfortable in the space that you are in, and then so this is why a lot of people are always saying, okay, how have you managed to stay in for 56 years and you continuously remain relevant? I always say, well, I try to be as inventive as possible. I don't like to feel in a comfortable space. I've made these hits, so perhaps this is what I should look for. As a creative person, be honest with who you are. Create things that you feel so that people can. You may not necessarily sell as millions of records, but ultimately people must respect you for being a creative person.
For your craft,
yes.
Billy, very briefly, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, well, I mean, for him to stay relevant and all that, I think he's one of musicians that I know him personally for many years, and is easy to work with. It's it's not about talent only. You get other musicians to work with of his generation. You will wish that never happened. And with him, it's easy. Look, we crossed rivers and oceans to be here in this rainy time. Someone like him, someone differently, it will be
work ethic.
Yeah, with ethic, yes.
All right, we're going to end it there. But if I could just steal 30 seconds of Shayla's time, Brasipo, is there a song that people have interpreted to mean something else than what you intended it to be? Of your work, of your body of work?
I've done so much work, Tsepi, that people don't even know the amount of music that I've made, And I'm just grateful that people always respond and always try to record and perform Burnout.
That's what I. That's what
they all come and rearrange that song in a different way.
I must thank you both, Brasipo Hotsticks Mabuse and Pilunama. That brings the time to 10 o'clock. This is it for Africa World Hour.
On the 6th of December, by the way, you forgot to tell them the date.
I actually did at the beginning, but I will do that again. So the Maibui Africa on the 6th of December, where?
In the Pretoria State Theatre.
There you go.
Yeah.
Every day of my life. Messing around with all the guys. Now let me tell you one more time. You're gonna burn out all my love. You're gonna burn out all my love. Gonna burn out all my love. Gonna burn out all my love. Feel you, how you break my heart, keeping me holding on too long, too long. Yeah, let me tell you one more time. Tonight, I'm gonna hold you till you cry. Hold you till you cry for more. Tonight, I'm gonna hold you.